Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another day of the KDL. I'm State. Joined with me is Peter, and it's a Wednesday, which means we have 3 team matches lined up for you. Should be 3 exciting ones. Some top teams, some low teams, and as of late, it seems like these rookies are starting to give the pro teams a run for their money.
Absolutely. Whenever we see these rookie teams come on, it feels like we're always going to that ace match, which is super exciting, and we love it. And as you mentioned, State, when it's a Wednesday of KDL, it's a really nice day because you get team matches, which we all love, but you get 3 of it, like a triple layered ice cream.
I like that, a triple layered ice cream. Yeah, usually we just get the 2.
Yeah.
And then we get this little fruit thing, little fruit bowl on the side, the solo matches. But this time we got 3 layers of ice cream as we look here at an overview of the team match. Right now we are in the regular season of the preseason, so to speak, getting ready to gear up for that postseason. Of course, the top 4 teams in the round robin will advance to the postseason. Bottom 4 teams are out. All these teams competing for an up to 40 million Korean won first place prize that is just shy of 40,000 US dollars. And we're talking about before the show, most of these teams now, they've played 4 series, so we're more than halfway through the regular part of this preseason.
Yeah, absolutely. As we take a look at the standings, there is a bit of a change because we did overturn the decision of the matchup between Guangdong Freaks and ShowTime. Now, ShowTime, they do get their win, so Guangdong Freaks now is going to be 4-1.
Yeah, admins yesterday deciding to reverse that decision. So Songnam Rock's now the only undefeated team in the league. They're going to look to try and defend that title as they want to pave their way to be the first seed heading into the postseason. And Rocks, I mean, so far this season are looking so good. KDL Preseason 1, a lot of that success came on the back of Jung competing in their, in the ace matches every single week, but now they're just rock solid. We'll see them in the 3rd match today as we look at today's matchup. ShowTime versus Liiv SANDBOX to start things off, and then Potential versus Sensation, and then, of course, Seraphic versus Songnam Rocks.
Yeah, we got a lot of exciting matchups today, and first of all, going in the match between ShowTime and Liiv SANDBOX, we were talking about this one before broadcast day, and we pretty much ruled out that an ace match might not happen here because Liiv SANDBOX, they're on pretty good form right now, despite losing. It was to Guangdong Freaks after all, which is one of our strongest teams here.
Yeah, Liiv SANDBOX were given their first defeat there to the KDF, and I think that as far as these matches go, ShowTime versus Liiv SANDBOX is probably the one that's not going to go to an ace match if any of them are going to avoid it. Liiv SANDBOX seem to be in very good form right now. I know they want to rebound after having that loss to the Freaks, but we'll see. Maybe ShowTime can surprise us again and come through with another big result against a pro team.
Yeah, meanwhile, Potential versus Sensation, this one's really exciting because Potential, they played 4 matches total so far, and they're looking to do another ace match today because they have 4 out of 4 ace matches.
All right, well, let's introduce the teams for the first match of the day. First onto the stage will be ShowTime, looking to start a miracle comeback to pave their way to the postseason. As of yet, seems like it is a long ways away, but a victory here over Liiv SANDBOX could get some potential going.
Yeah, speaking of miracles, they did have a miracle run through Ghost, especially a player that's been highlighted a lot for ShowTime because he's been able to pull off a lot of clutch comebacks, such as winning the ace match against World. Now, if ShowTime can win in speed match today against Liiv SANDBOX, that would be the kickstart they need.
Oh, that would be incredible if they could beat Liiv SANDBOX here in speed mode because LSB, even though they have retooled, re-kitted coming into KDL Preseason 2 after losing a number of players to military service, they're looking as strong as ever. Currently 3rd overall in the standings. After today, very well might be 2nd because they are looking so powerful. Neil, Jimin, Byungsu, Hyunsu, and Dalda. Of course, Byungsu coming over, formerly known as Speed, now the Speed Ace of Liiv SANDBOX, a key part of their success in Team Speed mode. And although item mode hasn't exactly been their forte so far, and also the forte for a lot of pro teams here as the meta has shifted in KDL Preseason 2, they're still looking solid, and it feels like every single week they are getting better.
Absolutely, especially in speed. Recently, they did get tested by Aura, going all the way to 3-2, and then actually lost to Guangdong Freaks 1-3, but looking very solid with 3 zeros all around.
ShowTime. Will ShowTime in need of a speed match power boost show a rebellion of the underdogs? Would love to see it. As overall in speed match, I mean, it just hasn't really been coming together here for ShowTime. You can see there at the bottom, the speed average rank. Now, I think we have something like 34, 35 racers in total that have competed in team speed mode so far this season. So having 3 of your players around like 33rd, 30th or so, 25th or so. Not the best in the standings. ShowTime that will beat the Item Master Aura, that beat Seraphic, that beat the Kwangdong Freaks, that beat Aura.
That's a really long sentence.
It's just, I think we've seen this like earlier in the season. It was already a mouthful then, and it just keeps getting better, man. Reminds me of back in the day of like other tournaments and other leagues. You would always be like, okay, well this team was the world champion, but then this team beat them, so now they're the unofficial world champion. But then they lost to this team, and then they lost to this team. So really, who's the champion now? And I get the kind of the same vibe with ShowTime.
Yeah.
Just coming through like, yeah, we can be the best here in item mode if we beat Liiv SANDBOX.
It's basically a really complicated food chain, but now for Liiv SANDBOX, as you can see, the ranks here look a lot better overall, and this is the team that has the highest rate of defenses.
Yeah, their blocks overall in item mode have been, quite high, almost 40%, which ranks them in first place in total. And in a more aggressive meta here in item mode, that does prove to be something that can be a tool, a skill that they can leverage coming into item mode here. And as we were just saying, man, it feels like time really is flying here. More than halfway through KDL Preseason 2, already the 6th match for Liiv SANDBOX. So after this, they only have one left this preseason until the postseason.
Yeah, postseason is definitely coming to an end. We have about 10 days left before we actually get into that schedule where only 4 teams will be able to play now, and it's Liiv SANDBOX looking to win today so that they can secure themselves that spot even further.
I feel like they all but assuredly will be going there regardless of the result today, but would love to come in as high a seed as possible here as we look at the speed track list. Liiv SANDBOX here with speed track priority, picking map number 1 on Glacier Extreme Stadium. Map number 2 will be Singapore Circuit, followed by Winding Slopes, World Tour New York Rally, and Village Boom Hill Tunnel will be track number 5, should we go to a track number 5. And Extreme Stadium, I love to see it. One of my favorite tracks overall here in the KDL, especially with those hairpin turns right before the finish line. And, a lot of the WKC circuits as well have been so exciting to watch. I mean, I love all these new tracks that we're getting here, not only, in the main client, but also here in the pro stage.
Yeah, interestingly enough, not much of the WKC tracks have been banned at all here, and I did like the bans from ShowTime there, banning out a track such as Zigzag Timberland, which Liiv SANDBOX is really proficient at. But this first track is picked by Liiv SANDBOX themselves. Let's see which team can take the win in Glacier Extreme Stadium.
And here we go, first track of the day, ShowTime versus Liiv SANDBOX on Glacier Extreme Stadium. Monster and Ghost for ShowTime already off to a great start, but look at this, Peter. Neil hot on their tail with Hyunsu right behind him.
Neil has constantly been trying to stay between Ghost and Monster, and that has worked out fantastically. Now 3 members of Liiv SANDBOX blocking out that 1-2 combo. Now Ghost, he desperately needs some support.
Yeah, Ghost right there all alone in first place. FaZe, the closest player behind him, sitting right now at 4th place. And might even fall back behind that with Neil, Byungsu, and Hyunsu all literally right on his tail. I mean, it's a 3v1 right here for that position coming into the hairpin turns.
This is a common problem that we see when you have 2 members of your team stuck in 7-8. It doesn't really matter even if you can hold the first place. So what Ghost needs to do right now is potentially do some sweeping along with Monster, buy some time for Flare and FaZe to catch up.
Yeah, basically the only win condition for ShowTime if they hold on to that 7th and 8th spot is going to be a 1-2 finish. And that does not seem to be in the cards right now, with Jimin actually taking the lead here for Liiv SANDBOX in 2nd place. Byungsu right behind him. Liiv SANDBOX comfortably sitting in 2-3-4 with also Neil right behind them in 7th place. And now Byungsu actually passing Ghost here and taking first place for the first time this track.
Yeah, Liiv SANDBOX now holding on to that 1-2 pretty firmly, and this is the 2nd lap. ShowTime still sitting at 7 and 8. This is not looking good. Ghost needs to at least tear apart Jimin and Byungsu.
Yeah, right now Liiv SANDBOX is just absolutely dominating this. Even Neil right here creating some problems in the back ranks as we come back into the hairpin turns. Only maybe 750 meters to that finish line. And there's a 3v1 here with Byungsu, Jimin, and Hyunsu. All just fighting up here against Ghost. I mean, every single Liiv SANDBOX player is in the top 5, and yet Ghost is just like, no, there's not a chance. We're out of this one. Throws in the towel, goes into the icy water here on Glacier Extreme Stadium, and it's a clean victory for Liiv SANDBOX to start things out on track number 1. Some truly fantastic racing.
Yeah, Liiv SANDBOX right there just saying, This is why we first picked Glacier Extreme Stadium, because we as a whole team is proficient in this track, completely dominated ShowTime there. And once again, the main problem really was that Ghost, he was doing a phenomenal job, but he just didn't have that support.
Yeah, Ghost, in my opinion, at least so far this season, by far the best speed racer here on ShowTime, was doing a great job of holding on to position number 1 against a plethora of Liiv SANDBOX players all the way through the first lap, but you can only do that for so long in a 2v1, 3v1 situation. Eventually, Liiv SANDBOX got the better of him. We're able to take track number 1 with ease here in speed mode.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that Liiv SANDBOX, they do have a complete 3-0 record in speed right now against amateur teams, and they're really looking to make that happen again here against ShowTime. And if you're ShowTime, you really want to try to win this because you don't want to rely on that item mode. But the second round is picked by ShowTime themselves, and the track is WKC Singapore Circuit. We begin the race with Liiv SANDBOX in the lead. Monster looking to try to keep up a lead in the top 4 spot.
Yeah, Monster and ShowTime would love to step up here on WK's Singapore Circuit and get on the board against Liiv SANDBOX, who looks so good right now in team speed mode. It seems like only the freaks really stand a chance to go up against them. And with Hyunsu and Byungsu right now holding on to that top 2 spot, it's a nice start here for Liiv SANDBOX on Singapore Circuit.
Yeah, Ghost is really trying to do all he can. He does have phase for support this time, but once again, Player Monster stuck in 7A, 1-2 for Liiv SANDBOX. This is not what you want as ShowTime. Ghost, he needs to try to at least take that first place away. Yeah,
and it's a similar story here as Ghost with that inner line, able to hold first place, at least for a moment there before Neil comes in on the outer, and now it's a 3v2 here with 3 Liiv SANDBOX players fighting these 2 for ShowTime as Flare and Monster desperately need to close the distance and lend some support. You can see them now on the heels of Jimin, trying to do a little bit of sweeping and give their runners some room to work with, but as of yet, Liiv SANDBOX still in control.
Neil is running away with that first place right now, as you said. 1-3-4, absolute control for Liiv SANDBOX here in the top field. You can see the 4 players all just synchronizing, going for the runner roll, sweeper roll as it's needed. The flexibility is really shining right now.
Yeah, and after some tough collisions, some nice sweeping here by Liiv SANDBOX. 3 ShowTime players falling to the bottom ranks. In fact, all of them now from 5th through 8th just getting dominated here by LSB, showing some fantastic teamwork. And I mean, look at Byungsu right now. The speed ace with some fantastic sweeping here, causing so many problems. And really, this is all he has to do. He doesn't care about finishing 4th or 5th or whatever position like that. He just wants to cause problems. And you see, with these fantastic body blocks on Monster trying to slide his way in, ShowTime, it just seems like they have no tricks up their sleeves left. It's a clean 3-0 here for Liiv SANDBOX unless ShowTime can make some kind of Hail Mary play.
Yeah, you can see Flare trying to take the inner lines to close the gap, but there's no chance because Jimin, Hyunsu, and Neil, when you have 3 players ahead of you, you can't find that line to pass through. And Liiv SANDBOX coming in with a clean sweep there, leading now 2-0.
Yeah, that was about as clean as it gets here on track number 2, Singapore Circuit. As Liiv SANDBOX for a moment there on lap number 2, about halfway through, they had all 4 players in the top 4 spots. And Byungsu, even though he's the speed ace, is like, no guys, like I'm already here in the back rank. I'm in position 4. I'm just going to sweep to my heart's content, cause as many problems for ShowTime as I possibly can. And I mean, you could really see it paying off as, yeah, Byungsu finishes 8th, but nobody on ShowTime really had any chance of closing distance on the top 3 players there for Liiv SANDBOX as they truly, flex their muscles here and truly show why they are one of the best team speed teams in the world in Kart Rider Drift.
Yeah, and also showing why they have such a great success rate in defense, not only in item, but also in speed. You saw how, as you mentioned, a speed ace like Byungsu, who's supposed to be running for the top positions, he filled in that sweeping role so well, basically doing a 1v4.
Yeah, this is often something that we see these pro teams do, is just get another replay here of Byungsu with some beautiful sweeping. Look at just all these little tiny collisions causing just micro damage here, just like chip damage. We're playing like a fighting game here on ShowTime, wearing them down bit after bit. And that's one of the things that these pro teams do so well, is they can almost play positionless Kart Rider on every single track. Any racer can do what they need to do to help their team succeed, as we're going to move on to mind-winding slopes for track number 3. Liiv SANDBOX looking for a 3-0 sweep in speed mode. And here we go on potentially the last track of speed mode here between Liiv SANDBOX and ShowTime, unless ShowTime's able to make a play happen.
Yeah, Flair took a big collision there right at the start. Not a fantastic start, because now there's a lot of pressure on FaZe to make sure that he can at least try to catch up with Ghost and Monster holding that 2-3.
Yeah, but FaZe and Flair back in the 7th and 8th position. This seems to be just the running theme here for ShowTime, is they have a couple players fall into the back ranks, and they aren't able to lend the support that their front runners lead. And
yeah,
you know, Ghost, he's fighting valiantly right now, actually able to hold on to the first-rank position despite 4 Liiv SANDBOX players behind him. And now Neil is going to be the one to take a page out of Youngsu's book. I mean, he is basically a speed ace in his own right, but he's just sweeping as much as he can to not let these players in the back ranks for ShowTime close the distance. And as it is right now, Liiv SANDBOX in good control despite Ghost being in first place. We had a bit of a collision there. I'm not actually sure who caught the ledge, but Liiv SANDBOX looking really good here, Peter.
Yeah, if you take a look at the minimap, Flair was quite set behind right now. He did manage to close that distance a bit, but not enough. Neil actually making a pretty big mistake there is going to give some breathing space to now Flair and Monster. But it's Ghost who is now fallen behind to 3rd place. It's 1-2 here for Liiv SANDBOX if they can keep it up.
Yeah, and here on the straightaway, Ghost is able to disrupt it for a moment though, and actually with a 2-3-4. Oh, some unfortunate collisions there. Some bounces off the wall for Liiv SANDBOX, and ShowTime surprising us for sure there to come through with a 2-3-4 finish. As you can see them laughing a little bit about that on stage. A wild one to close out track number 3 as ShowTime gets on the board with a win. As I thought, just like you, that Liiv SANDBOX undoubtedly had the 1-2 finish there in the bag with the, the straightaway jump, but ShowTime just able to come through in the clutch of the final moments to capitalize on Liiv SANDBOX's mistake, and we're going to go to a track 4.
It started off with a collision from Neil. It sent him back all the way to 8th place, and then Jimin was the only one who was able to successfully jump off that ledge there and finish first, because right before that, it was Liiv SANDBOX with a pretty safe-looking 1-2, right? But
yeah,
Ghost was able to come in and deny that, and then his teammates were also able to catch up and ultimately win through a 2-3-4.
Yeah, ShowTime showing some life here with a victory on Liiv SANDBOX's map pick, if I'm not mistaken, here for track number 3. We're going to move on to New York Rally in just a moment. ShowTime would love to pick up a speed mode victory here against one of the top speed teams in the KDL. Would be a big confidence booster to them in a season that so far has not truly gone their way. As we get ready to move on to track number 4, ShowTime versus Liiv SANDBOX. Liiv SANDBOX still only needing 1 track win to win speed mode. Let's go to World Tour New York Rally.
Off we go into speed round number 4. This is match point for Liiv SANDBOX here. ShowTime looking to take us to a round 5.
ShowTime would love to do that now, as Neil off to a better start than the previous track for sure here, as him, Youngsu, and Hyunsu in a commanding 1-2-3 spot. Now keep in mind, this is a 1-lapper, and it's not an especially long lap. So the onus is really on ShowTime to start to make a play here to try to break through, and Hyunsu, you can see him just try to body block a little bit, because of course 1-2 is a win condition here in team speed mode, excuse me.
Yep, 1-2-3 has been held pretty well so far by Liiv SANDBOX. You can see Hyunsu, he does fall behind a bit, but it doesn't matter at all, because this amount of distance is easily catch-upable, and he can also play a lot of sweeping here, as you can see him doing right now, denying a lot of the cleaner lines for Ghost.
And he really doesn't mind falling behind at all. Okay, well, maybe he minds crashing into that wall a little bit, but up until that point, I mean, the MO was just to body block ShowTime as much as possible and create issues, and now it's going to be Jimin who's going to be playing that sweeping role here in the mid-ranks, try and cause some problems here for FaZe, for Ghost, for Flair, and you can see him actually cutting in front of Ghost and then going for a sweep. Wasn't quite able to connect with that one. He is able to get some body blocks here on Flair, but keep in mind that Byung-Soo and Neil, they are continuing to run away with this thing, still a number of meters away from Ghost, the first place racer here for ShowTime.
The Liiv SANDBOX 1-2 punch is completely uncontested right now. Ghost looking for the inners there, but he bumped into the wall slightly, and the distance is not getting closed anytime soon. Liiv SANDBOX closing off round 4 with a 1-2.
Yeah, Byung-Soo, the speed ace, and Neil, the runner here for Liiv SANDBOX, doing an excellent job of running away with that one, especially in the latter part of lap number 1, with some fantastic support from Jimin and Hyunsoo doing the sweeping when they needed to. Allowed their top 2 racers to just create space. And we're going to be moving on to item mode now in just a moment here as we see Byung-Soo actually setting a new record there. And that's what happens when your team behind you does a great job of supporting you and not causing any problems, because Byung-Soo pretty much out of the gate was practically in time trial mode here. Despite being team speed, there was really no contention from ShowTime at the top ranks there as Liiv SANDBOX taking the 3-1 victory.
Yep, one good note for ShowTime is that they are now at least the first amateur team to take a point off of Liiv SANDBOX in speed. And now, if they can at least use that to their morale, they're looking to continue their dominance in item mode, which is where they shine a lot more, as we see Ghost getting swapped out, and we see Fran being placed in as the item ace.
I mean, Liiv SANDBOX coming in today had an 86% win rate on tracks in speed mode, and anytime you can take a victory off of a team like that, currently the best win rate overall in team speed here in the KDL, it is going to be a confidence boost. As ShowTime, their win condition was always going to be beating Liiv SANDBOX in item mode, as Neil says goodbye. Adalda, the item specialist here, is going to sub in for me. Does Liiv SANDBOX get ready to switch gears here?
You have to wonder, is this where we get to see that 2 item specialists come into play? We kept talking about Dalda and Jimin, the 2 item aces technically coming into play. If they're able to win against a team like ShowTime today, who has been going to ace matches mostly off of their item matches, that would be a big showing.
Yeah, looking at the item track list now, ShowTime, of course, with item track priority here, gets the 1st, 3rd, and 5th pick. We're going to be starting out on World Tour London Night, and then move on to Mine Magma Cavern, Mine Mother Lode, Desert Pharaoh's Pass, and shall we go to a track number 5? That will be raised on Village Clock Tower Crossing, one we don't see too often here in item mode.
Yeah.
Or at least I certainly haven't casted the series where we had it, if we had it more.
But I love the bans coming out from Liiv SANDBOX here, taking out both tracks from Factory. I feel like the Factory tracks are a bit of an RNG fest in the sense that there's a lot of natural obstacles in the way. They don't want to deal with any of that, and they're sticking to the safer tracks they're more confident in.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's RNG, but certainly those games can be way more chaotic. And as the professional team here at Liiv SANDBOX, you want to try and control the situation as best you can here against the underdogs, ShowTime, who are going to try and mount their comeback here in item mode as we move to track number 1. It'll be World Tour London Night.
We begin our item round number 1. This is a 3-lapper track, so our teams have plenty of time to pick up items like Angel and Lightning.
And World Tour London Night has been one of these tracks that plays a little bit differently from, the other maps that we have here. It's actually the bus gets some action. We usually don't see that too often. That's the real New York City tour bus, man. I mean, these racers drive around these little miniature ones, but that's the one that can really mess you up right there, as it did some sweeping of its own here in lap number 1. But yeah, this section right here, leading up to the end of the track, can be so precarious, and the line of sight blocking with these sharp turns here, especially this one right here before the finish line, can cause some real issues for racers that are trying to either come through with attacks like rockets or trying to connect with magnets. It can get very complicated very quick, and so some teams have had a little bit of success going for some more wombo combo plays, just trying to run as fast as you possibly can, whether it be with Nitrous, with Angel Shield, something like that. We've also seen occasionally teams just absolutely stack up the Thunderbolts now. Right now, Liiv SANDBOX's Jimin, the only player on the field with a Thunderbolt. I would not be surprised if he held on to that one through the rest of the track, getting ready for that finish line.
Absolutely. Flair right now sitting up at the top with a shield and an EMP, so you'll be able to absorb a lot of aggro. A nice usage of Water Bomb there, targeting only the players from Liiv SANDBOX. Now, we are moving into the 3rd lap, and as we take a look at the item inventory, there are a lot of magnets. There's 1 Angel on the side of ShowTime.
Yeah, a number of UFOs as well is actually, okay, for a second there I thought Jimin, I lost track as the players just keep changing rakes. I thought he dropped the Thunderbolt, but no, he's still the only player on the field holding on to one of those. Liiv SANDBOX would love to pick off one more. You're heading into the latter portion of lap number 3. The bridge goes up. Dalda, the only player here actually able to take the shortcut.
Yeah, Dalda having a nice lead right now, but he's going to get slowed down by the UFO. He manages to dodge through the Ferris wheel pretty nicely, but it seems like he's getting heavily contested by his own teammate in Hyunsu, looking to spin into the finish line, but it's FaZe.
Wow, Hyunsu there, yeah, the nitrous coming around the corner, but he spinned out. Actually, that allowed FaZe, the lone racer for ShowTime, close to pole position to make a Hail Mary play and finish in first place by a hair there. And a nail-biter finish, man. I was looking at the item inventories. I saw Hyunsu coming around that bend, and I thought, oh, okay, he's going to pop it. And then for sure he's going to be able to finish it, but then he hits the barricade and he spins out. And by, what is that, like, less than a tenth of a second, ShowTime is going to be able to sweep that one out of the feet of Liiv SANDBOX, and a stunning victory there. Nice start for ShowTime. Is again, we always knew the winning condition here for ShowTime in this series against Liiv SANDBOX is to win an item mode and then try to beat them in ace. And coming off to a 1-0 lead in item, it's a good start.
Yeah, that missile timing was absolutely on point. It seemed like Liiv SANDBOX might still have been able to get away with it, but it was FaZe coming in clutch at the last moment there for ShowTime. And as you said, Stay leading 1-0 is absolutely the start they're looking for. As we take a look at what happened once again.
Yeah, so UFO slows down Dalda, and now Hyunsu coming in. He has that nitrous, and it's the barricade, and the missile just barely clips him right before he crosses the finish line. I still thought he might even have enough momentum after spinning out to still cross it in time, but was just a little bit too short as that rocket took all the wind out of his sails.
Yeah, I also love the line that FaZe took there, applying a lot of pressure on his opponent while simultaneously making sure that he can go into the finish line with a pretty optimal line. That was a really great play from him there, and I'm looking to see what they can bring us because the next track is picked by Liiv SANDBOX themselves. So let's see if Liiv SANDBOX can bounce back in Mine Magma Cavern.
And the race begins on Mine Magma Cavern. Liiv SANDBOX looking to get on the board here in item mode after winning speed 3-1 against ShowTime. And Mine Magma Cavern, one of my personal favorite tracks here in item mode because of how dangerous it really is in these different sections and how effective water bombs are as a result of that, with no barriers between you and the lava. I mean, rockets can cause you to spin out from turns into, you know, despair, more or less. And also right before that finish line, this little ramp that you head up to, this choke point, we've seen so many brilliant plays with teams just timing out water bombs at the perfect moment where they cannot be dodged. This one right here, this big ramp. And I would love to see, you know, Liiv SANDBOX or ShowTime try to go for a play like that when they're setting up their item inventories for lap number 3.
Yeah, not only that, you can also go for some body checks and apply a little pressure on your opponents, try to execute them into the lava as we see some good iteration of water bombs being used there. We're seeing the players of ShowTime having a pretty magnificent lead so far. They have an Angel, but if you take a look at the inventory of Liiv SANDBOX, it's triple lightning.
Yeah, triple lightning. Jimin was holding on to 2 lightning bolts for a very long time, and now actually Dalda with the 3rd one. So watch for Dalda and Jimin to basically just play item support here and try and get one more good support item, maybe an Angel Shield or maybe a rocket to try and attack one of the lead racers here for ShowTime coming into lap number 3. And you know, they won't be able to rotate through items quite as much, which means they won't have as much blocking, they won't have as many attacks coming out of those bottom 2 racers, but the power of 3 Thunderbolts heading into the final lap cannot be understated here, especially considering ShowTime have none on the board.
Yeah, and you can see that monster, he's been holding on to that water bomb for a really long time, so he's purposely staying behind, looking for an angle to try to snipe out the players of Liiv SANDBOX here. As we see FaZe, he's holding on to a shield, he got caught up by the water bomb there, and he's looking to utilize that here.
All right, now let's see how the Thunderbolts get used. 400 meters away, Fran right now in the lead. Angel Shield gets popped, does block the first lightning, as another one's gonna come through, and now Fran just completely stunned right there. Is this gonna be a free reign for Hyunsu? I mean, you just see the power of the Thunderbolt as if you don't have all of the defensive items necessary to match them. And I mean, who is gonna have enough to hold on against 3 Thunderbolts you're just dead in the water. I mean, Flair had literally no momentum there for the longest time, but that was on a flat. It wasn't even him trying to get up the ramp. So LSB just making a great read on the situation, picking up every Thunderbolt they can, saving them for their final moments, and it's a 3.7-second lead for Yunsu across the finish line, as that just completely went Liiv Sandbox's way.
It definitely felt like for a moment there that Flair's acceleration pedal was broken because he couldn't move.
Yeah, man. I mean, you hit by a lightning bolt. I wouldn't be surprised if your car broke down too.
Yeah, that is a good point, and especially when it's triple. And we were looking at the item inventories to see if more angels would come out, like you said, State. But there can only be so many angels to save you, because you not only have to defend against the lightnings, but we saw water bombs, missiles, water whips. All of those are really deadly in a track like Mine, Magma Cavern.
Yeah, and well, we're all tied up 1-1 now between Liiv Sandbox and ShowTime. As we move on to track number 3, it will be on Mine Motherlode.
We are tied 1-1 right now here in item round 3. Either team between ShowTime and Liiv Sandbox looking to continue a lead.
Yeah, and Liiv Sandbox with the favor of the item gods there on the previous track. We'll see if they get to hold on to as many Thunderbolts this time as they did before, because even in track number 1, that kind of seemed to be their game plan, right? I think it was even Jim in the same racer that was trying to hold on to Thunderbolts from the beginning, from lap number 1 all the way through lap number 3. And yeah, look at Yunsu right now. First player on the field to pick up a Thunderbolt. I would be surprised if they use that any time before the finish line, right? I mean, they would love to double up on that, triple up on that if they could.
Yep. Item mode is definitely like a game of spear versus shield. Whoever has better offense or defense wins, but so far we're seeing FaZe up there. He's going to quickly cycle through that banana right there. We're moving into the second lap. Nice water bomb there, but Monster didn't get hit by that.
Yeah, Monster is breaking away a little bit right here, as I think I can't tell exactly what weapon it was that went after Monster, but it seemed like some attack came in, so Liiv Sandbox is going to do their best to try and close the distance here. But Yunsu right now in 3rd place, or 4th place, excuse me, with a magnet, should be able to gain a bit of speed as we get another Thunderbolt here on Liiv Sandbox. And now with Monster's lead diminishing, 2 lightnings on the field, and also another UFO coming in here on Monster. It's looking good for Liiv Sandbox here in track number 2. I'm liking their inventory setup.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as they were able to catch up to Monster there, because they were able to expertly dodge all the water bombs being thrown by ShowTime. Now, they do have a pretty significant lead for themselves here in the 3rd lap. We're looking at double lightnings being held by Liiv Sandbox, double angel for ShowTime.
And double angel, quite good here for ShowTime, but would love to see a little bit more offensive capability here for them, as they just haven't really got the luck of the dice in that regard as of yet. Is Liiv Sandbox, I'm wondering who it is going to be on their team. Perhaps Jimin right now with the Magnet and the Nitrous, who will try to make the Hail Mary play to cross the finish line first, while Dalda and Yunsu support with the Lightnings, as we just have these players continue to rotate through their items.
Yeah, Byungsu got a great usage of shield there. He's still holding on to the magnet, looking for a potential outplay angle. Monster also holding on to a magnet of his own. Flair, he only has a shield, but he picks up a EMP wave. That is crucial, because now he can defend against the magnet, but it's Jimin coming out of nowhere, speeding through into the finish line.
Yeah, the Lightnings come through in the clutch again, and ShowTime, as hard as they try to defend against him, not only did Liiv Sandbox have those Lightnings in the bag, they also had Nitrous in a great position, and Jimin was able to leverage that there to come through, and now it's 2-1 in Liiv Sandbox's favor after dropping track number 1. They're looking really good these last 2 maps.
Yeah, it's definitely looking rough for ShowTime right now, but the 2 times where they were able to win a set and item and take it to an ace match, or 3 times rather, it was all 3-2, so ShowTime is no stranger to playing from behind.
I did not know. That's an interesting fact right there, having them all go 3-2.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have to do it again if they want to make it happen here against Liiv Sandbox. I mean, ShowTime, they have shown some prowess in item mode here in the past in KDL, especially against these pro teams, but Liiv Sandbox, these past 2 tracks just feels like they have their number. So we're going to match point now, track number 4, Liiv Sandbox versus ShowTime. If Liiv Sandbox wins, it will be a 2-0 sweep as we move to Desert Pharaoh's Pass. Potentially the last track of match number 1 here between ShowTime and Liiv SANDBOX, as it is match point. Liiv SANDBOX also with the victory here in speed mode. They just need one more track win to continue on their path to the postseason.
Yep, once again, we're on a 3-lapper track. Byungsu picking up a nice early lightning there, which is extremely helpful, but Fran also picks up an Angel as well, so that's really nice.
Yeah, but Angel shields are much more likely to get cycled out during the mid-game as a lot of attacks come in, right? So we'll see whether ShowTime decides to hang on to them. They do have 2 Angel shields in the bag right now and 2 EMPs as well. So really a lot of defensive items in their inventories overall. You know, at that point, it makes me think that you have to kind of rotate some of these items out to try and get those Thunderbolts, right? Or at least be able to cycle through other aggressive items to slow down the fleet that is Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, and Hyunsu, he manages to pick up a magnet there, so he's gonna feel a lot more comfortable now, even if he falls behind. Meanwhile, FaZe really looking to try to get some utilization out of the EMP wave. We are sitting at the 2nd lap right now, so I doubt it's gonna see much use.
A lot of water whiffs coming out of both teams right now. It's going to be 3 Angel shields in total for ShowTime. They are not rotating those out. They did rotate out 1 EMP, but Angel shields seems to be something they were really prioritizing here. And for Liiv SANDBOX right now, who only have 1 Thunderbolt, suddenly, we were talking about Spear and Shield. The shield for ShowTime seems quite strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we can see Byungsu really trying to take the inner there to pass, but the water bomb is going to clip him. Now, Fran, sitting healthily in 1st place, is going to get caught up soon by Byungsu. Fran, he picks up an EMP. Not sure if that's what he needs. He needs a bit more items than that.
Yeah, EMP is not especially useful here, especially if you're in 1st place. Is looking at the Nitrous fields. You have 2 on ShowTime side, 1 for Liiv SANDBOX. Actually, one of those Nitrous gets passed, and ShowTime wants to strengthen their midfield a little bit here coming into the final lap. And still, only 1 lightning bolt on the field, and Byungsu's the one with it in his inventory. Would love to see Liiv SANDBOX or maybe even ShowTime pick up 1 more here in this final track, but that's up to fate, right? You got to play the hand that you're dealt here in item mode.
Yeah, there's 1 magnet apiece for each side right now. Hyunsu and Flare holding onto the magnet. Our eyes are on those players as FaZe. He races to the finish line. Angel coming in, manages to dodge out the water bomb, and it's the members of ShowTime who has the back of FaZe coming in 1, 2, 3, tying up the score 2-2.
Yeah, some nice defensive item usage there by ShowTime, and they just had so much manpower right by that finish line that Liiv SANDBOX, they couldn't control the flood. I mean, all those soldiers coming in for ShowTime, only 1 Thunderbolt in the bag for Liiv SANDBOX, as they were not able to get the combination of items that they needed to secure the win. And now we're going to be going to a track number 5, Peter. And you said that's how ShowTime usually likes to do it here in item mode. That might be the story yet again. Yeah,
that's how Team ShowTime runs. When it comes to item mode, they put on a show for us. Out of the 5 matches, as we said, 3 of those ace matches came from a 3-2 item mode victory, and ShowTime looking to repeat that here against a giant team like Liiv SANDBOX. It will be good for their records, because now you have to fear this team in item mode potentially.
Oh, absolutely. Here, getting a replay of lap number 1. Try to see exactly what the action is. Actually, Monster got hit with so many attacks there on the I-ramp that he fell a little bit back.
Yeah, but he still got off a nice water bomb there.
Yep, now here at the finish line, you can see, oh, that water bomb connecting with Jimin actually missed that there in the middle ranks, as that took a lot of the wind out of the sails of the Liiv SANDBOX players there. They would have loved to have a little bit more speed around that bend heading into the finish line, but ShowTime just able to capitalize. As we're getting ready to go to track number 5, this one will tell the tale between ShowTime and Liiv SANDBOX. If ShowTime wins, we're going to an ace match. Let's decide it here on Village Clock Tower Crossing.
We have a perfect track here to close off. We're extremely close item mode between Liiv SANDBOX and ShowTime. Whoever wins this takes it all. If it's Liiv SANDBOX, ShowTime, they take us to an ace match. And so far, we're seeing Monster and Fran really utilizing the common strategy in this track, which is to build a significant lead.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks where sometimes we will see these players try to really run away with it. You know, you can actually create some large distance here on these long winding laps. And for Monster now, he isn't too far ahead of Hyunsu. We'll see if he actually is able to gain some distance as well. Fran there actually able to take the shortcut there on the, what's it called? Water fountain. My goodness, some basic vocabulary at a loss for words here. Is Let's see, Hyunsu is going to try and wait, I think, until this turn to see if he can connect. And oh, the shield actually does pop in time there for Monster, but nothing really to deal with the UFO. So Hyunsu should be able to close the distance on him. But, man, Monster just standing strong right now here in lap number 2.
Yeah, his inventory's been quickly exhausted, but he does manage to pick up another shield for himself. Unfortunately, it does nothing against the UFO, as you said, but he went for still a nice, really cheeky block there on Byungsu.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that he has 2 Liiv SANDBOX players behind him, right? So he wants to, at least while he's getting slowed down, provide his teammates with some room to start to close the distance here. Now it's Fran and Jimin here in first place, and checking in on the item inventory, it is actually ShowTime with the only Thunderbolt on the field here. That is FaZe in 8th place, holding on to that. We do have a number of Nitrous also in the bag of Fran, of Hyunsu, 2 in the bag actually of Flare, as he's actually going to pop one out and try to make his way closer and closer to this first place position here on lap number 3. Is, you know, as we saw in the previous track, having a large number of racers all in position to cross that finish line when the moment comes. Sharing that aggro can create a big problem for your opposing team.
Yeah, and this ledge that you got to jump off of, it's important to see what lines our players take. So far, it seems Hyunsu won the line battle between Monster and him. Now Hyunsu looking to block him out, but Monster,
no!
He manages to find the way across, shields the barricade, comes in first place for ShowTime.
Yeah, Monster coming through in the clutch. You can see the sweeping attempted there by Liiv SANDBOX, but they whiff on it just by a hair, and Monster able to weave his way through that narrow corridor, through the bodies of the Liiv SANDBOX player, and come through to force an ace matches. I mean, you called it after what, track number 3, that 3-2. This is how ShowTime likes to do it when Liiv SANDBOX is up 2-1, is ShowTime actually comes through yet again. Another 3-2 finish here in item mode, and we are going to an ace match.
They definitely make sure to show us why they are called Team ShowTime, because they want to put on a show, like we said, stay 3-2. They're looking very happy about this one, and I'm sure that we might see Ghost again participating in Ace Match. It will be really exciting to see that, because it was Ghost who was able to stop the Ace Match win streak for World from Guangdong Freaks, who is a phenomenal player who was pretty much a rival, we can say, to Jung in Ace Match.
Yeah, beating World is just something incredible, and even independent of that, in team match speed overall, we talk about how ShowTime, they've been struggling a lot in that mode, but Ghost in particular, individually, he hasn't, which is impressive considering the lack of support he's really been having from his other teams. I mean, he is 6th overall for individual racers in team speed mode in terms of overall rank. He's finishing, you know, somewhere between 3rd and 4th place on average pretty much every track, so you got to think that he's going to be a no-brainer choice here for ShowTime. And if you're Liiv SANDBOX, the decision is a little bit more complicated. Of course, Neil, he's a player that has done it all. You know, he's won championships. He's going to be a team champion eventually here in Kartrider Drift League. It's all but inevitable. This guy is one of the best. He is the best global player to ever play Kartrider, period. But I mean, the speed ace that they have now, Byungsu, is also a top racer here for Liiv SANDBOX. There's so much speed talent on this roster, it's really hard to choose just one player, and you can see the coach discussing there, at least for a moment, with his players to try and decide who that player is going to be, because you lose this match here against Ghost, and suddenly you're not going to be the 1st seed or the 2nd seed heading in the postseason. That's in jeopardy. You might be 3rd.
Right, but you can see the coach of Liiv SANDBOX, there are a lot of smiles all around. I'm pretty sure he's just asking the players, all right guys, we're all good. Who wants to play today? Who's feeling on top of their form? And honestly, so far it's been Neil. Liiv SANDBOX, they only have to play 2 ace matches. Neil played in both of them, and he was able to secure a victory against Hojin and Summer. And especially talking of Hojin, he is a player in top form right now, especially that match. It was really close between Neil and Hojin as well. I feel like one key aspect to Neil is that I think Neil is one of the best players in Kartrider Drift at the timing the drafts. And that's what can be really game-changing in a match like an ace match where it's just a 1v1.
Yeah.
So Neil is probably still my best bet.
Yeah, I could absolutely see it. I agree with you that Neil is probably the most likely racer here to come out for Liiv SANDBOX here in this 1v1, as he's been so clutch for them in the past, and even beating Hojin, as you said. Hojin just kind of reinventing himself, returning to form here in KDL Preseason 2, as his Preseason 1 performance coming out of retirement, it was a little bit lackluster by, you know, the Emperor's standards, right? I mean, it was obviously a respectable performance for Sensation, but KDL Preseason 2, he's doing so much better. And so for Neil to be able to take him down, got to be a confidence booster for already one of the greatest of all time kart rider racers in Neil.
For sure. I just took a look at the pose of the members in ShowTime, and it seemed like all the players were kind of just relaxed, sitting around, talking and chilling, but only Ghost, he was sitting there completely focused, no movement, no change of expression even. He's ready to game. I can tell you right now that we're going to see Ghost for sure.
Yeah. It would not surprise me the slightest. Cameraman
Neil.
focusing here on Neil. Seems like he might be getting ready to face off against Ghost, although we have been deked is the term, where the players fool you into thinking that, you know, either they were chosen or somebody wasn't chosen, or, you know, in baseball you use that term where you know, player the outfield, they'll make a big catch and they'll just pretend they didn't caught it, and then they're like, I got it. Neil did that to us in KDL Preseason 1. I had a big laugh about that, so I don't trust him too much here, even though he looks like he's getting ready. He looks like he's getting in position to play.
Look at that. Only Neil is not in this team discussion.
Okay.
If Neil is acting this one out, we may as well hand him an Oscar.
I mean, he might deserve it. He might deserve an Oscar at this point. I mean, after the trickery he's brought out before. But yeah, I think the decisions are going to be coming in pretty soon as that music.
Ooh.
That's a nice picture right there.
Yeah, I love that selfie.
Yeah, a lot of fans here in the audience. Usually Wednesdays are the slower days here in the KDL because
ooh,
some global fans here supporting Neil.
That
is so
what
cool.
Our producers say. I love that selfie. I would love to have a selfie like that with Neil.
I'm sure you could get one, man. You're casting. I bet you ask him. Go out there in this suit, ask him for a selfie.
But I'm shy. He's a global superstar. When you come into the face of the likes of Neil, you can't help but feel like a smaller version of yourself.
I know. I certainly do know what that's like. I mean, I've competed in games in the past. I've casted a variety of games, but even when I meet, you know, legends of other RTS or esports titles too, it's always a little bit humbling, right? Especially if they come before your time.
Yeah, and it seems like we got a ruling. It seems there's a tech issue going on, so we're making sure to get that solved real quickly because we don't want anything to ruin an exciting ace match like the likes of a potential Neil versus Ghost matchup.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it could just be something like sound. Oftentimes it lands like this one that could be an issue, or maybe just some keyboard setting doesn't feel right. I'm sure the tech team here at the KDL will be able to sort this very shortly, as we're still waiting to see what the decision is going to be here from Liiv SANDBOX or from ShowTime. But I'm right there with you where, you know, 100% ShowTime, it's got to be Ghost. He's been racing so well, 6th overall in standings right now in team speed. And for Liiv SANDBOX, although you do have a lot more options, I mean, just looking at the camera shot now, it really does seem like Neil is the one who is truly getting ready. And if he was fooling us again, yeah, this is absolutely, you know, Oscar, Academy Award, whatever you want to give him.
Yeah, imagine Jimin right there, not even looking at his computer screen, all of a sudden just turn around and get ready to game. But it seems like our track has been chosen. It'll be in Glacier Extreme Stadium.
That's a fun one for an ace match, too. I can't wait to see those hairpin turns. One of the best tracks that we have overall here in Team Speed. One of my favorites. And yeah, it's going to be Neil versus Ghost. All right, let's do this thing.
This is a super exciting matchup. If Neil wins this one, then he continues his win streak here in Preseason 2. He'll be 3-0 in ace matches against some phenomenal players, whereas Ghost, he's played in 3 ace matches, lost 2 of them, but his one victory was against World. So if he's able to stop the win streak of Neil here today, I'm sure that'll give him a lot of boost of confidence.
Absolutely is. We'll see if he can take down another legend here in Neil, as Ghost versus Neil, ShowTime versus Liiv SANDBOX, all comes down to this ace match on Glacier Extreme Stadium.
Ladies and gentlemen, we kickstart an awesome 1v1 ace match between Ghost and Neil. It's Neil leading the charge right now, but I'm sure Ghost is looking for those drafts.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost is easily in draft range, so I would not be surprised to see this change hands as it immediately does. And also watching the nitrous meter, very close overall between these two players. They are exchanging a little bit here as, you know, they keep trying to pass each other in lines and just get more on that defensive setup. And Neil right there sacrificing a little bit of speed to build more nitrous gauge. would not be surprised to see him try and take a pass here on one of these closer turns.
It's like watching the players constantly rock, paper, scissors right now. You win, I win, they're just exchanging blows. But at the end of the day, it seems like the nitrous boost gauge is pretty close for the most part. And Neil, he's still within a good range. He can get back into that draft range easily.
Yeah, and Neil taking these hairpin turns a little bit tighter than Ghost will allow him to close some of the distance. But I gotta say, Ghost doing a fantastic job of actually creating space here. And Neil, although he is a little bit ahead in the nitrous gauge, it's gonna be tough for him. Almost an uphill battle to try and close the distance properly.
Ooh.
As we are getting closer and closer, Neil still one more nitrous in the back. And
my
actually, wow!
goodness, Neil! Coming in with the tight line, and he manages to block out Ghost simultaneously. And you have to keep in mind that Neil is a full nitrous boost gauge ahead now, so he's feeling phenomenal.
Yeah, that was an insane move. I'm surprised he actually went for that one, as it could have been a really big problem should he have collided with that wall. But Neil, with just absolute guts coming through, not only blocking Ghost, but also taking the pass and then fighting immediately after that. Now coming into the hairpin turns, Neil a nitrous or almost about half a nitrous ahead. And in a fantastic spot here, Ghost, he has to make a play sometime soon if he wants to come through with a win.
Ghost, he's trying to make it happen right now, but Neil is too far to get any draft range. And Neil coming in, closing it off with this Neil build in style for Liiv SANDBOX, getting his team a much-deserved victory.
Yeah, Liiv SANDBOX is going to move to 5-1 overall right now after that win by Neil, as Neil put on a clinic. And it was a little scary for a moment there after lap number 1, as you know, Ghost, you could feel that lead starting to build and build and build, but that's because Neil was prioritizing nitrous as much as he did, and then coming through with that insane inner line. I hope we get a replay of that. I'm sure it's going to be in the highlights if we don't have a replay of it ready right now.
Yeah.
Neil passing Ghost and then also coming through with the block and just securing his position there in first place. It was so great to see. I mean, Ghost, that was a tremendous race from him. ShowTime, they looked strong here yet again. They just haven't really been able to put all the pieces together as of yet in KDL Preseason 2, but I gotta say that the racers here for ShowTime, some respect being shown there by Neil, but the racers here for ShowTime, I mean, there's so much skill in this team. The skill ceiling, they have not even come close to reaching it, and I guarantee you we're gonna see a lot more of these guys later on in KDL Preseason 2 and over the rest of the year.
For sure. As we take a look at our results for match number 19, it was Liiv SANDBOX taking speed 3-1. It felt extremely dominating here, but when it came to the item mode, ShowTime showed up and showed us why they've been able to force these ace matches, taking us to round 5. And ultimately, in ace match, it was Neil who won against Ghost.
Yeah, nice ace match victory there by Neil, and Liiv SANDBOX looking as good as ever in speed, continuing to maintain their first place record overall in team speed mode. I think that win rate is still hovering above something ungodly, 80% or something around that line. So Liiv SANDBOX, a force to be reckoned with here for sure, moving up to 5-1 overall in the standings now, passing the Kwangdong Freaks for second place. And also a plus one, only a +1 round differential, right? I think from that one. So Liiv SANDBOX, you know, it's not exactly the buffer that they would like, is I think it's probably going to come down to the round differentials to decide who's going to advance first between them and the Kwangdong Freaks in the seeding for the postseason. But a lot of these pro teams, it feels like they've all but booked their ticket to those playoffs.
I'm sure it's no surprise to many of us here that we are seeing that rivalry kind of play out again here in Preseason 2 between Liiv SANDBOX and Kwangdong Freaks. Not only was it present in KDL Preseason 1, but it also comes from the original Kart Rider League. These two teams have a long history behind them. And the one really surprising thing right now coming into Preseason 2 is that, of course, Seongnam Rocks being the only undefeated team so far.
Yeah, 4-0. They're playing third today as well, so we'll see if they can maintain that undefeated record as I mean, all these pro teams so far, it feels like they are really stepping up here in KDL Preseason 2. It feels like the skill gap might be even getting wider in KDL Preseason 2 between the rookies, the amateur teams, and the pro teams. We'll have to see if that continues. It just does feel like all these old legends are really starting to hit their stride in this new game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the gap is sort of widening, especially for speed mode. It's mainly been the item mode where it's been a bit shaky for a lot of our pro teams. That's where they've been losing those sets and having to go through the ace matches. But like we said, they're so good at speed that even when they do an ace match, they're likely to win because they have phenomenal players who are specializing in that department.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be it for match number 1. We're going to go to a short break. When we get back, Potential versus Sensation in team match number 2. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you soon.
Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me.